Hi, guys, and welcome to this week's episode of Fireside Chat. I'm Danielle Johnson, and I am your host for today's episode. On this portion of the podcast where we talk about things you only hear in Missouri.
In nowhere, Missouri.
I'm recording this podcast, and I'm looking out the window watching my horse get her head stuck in the fence. Because, guys, sometimes the grass really is greener on the other side.
That's so true.
Guys, I am located in Warrensburg, Missouri. I own Twister Sports. We have all-star cheerleading, competitive tumbling, competitive dance, and all the things, gymnastics, birthday parties, private lessons, childcare program, all of the great things. And I am here to talk to you guys today on this episode about getting your fire back.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
If you're not familiar with this podcast, I am also one of the owners of Next Generation Gym Owners. I definitely want to put in this quick plug for you guys to head over if you're not part of our free Facebook groups. If you are a gym owner, head over to Cheer Gym Owners on Facebook. If you are a coach or an owner who still loves to coach also, head over to All Star Cheer Coaches and Owners. And then lastly, before I dive into the episode, make sure you head over to the cheerbizaccelerator.com. This is the newest thing we have launched here at Next Gen because we're now only hosting one conference a year. However, we have moved into the CheerBiz Accelerator so that you can do a deep dive at one of our gyms. The first one is going to be in October, located at Portland, at Oregon Dream Teams, which is Dan Cotton's gym, if you listen to the CheerBiz podcast as well. The second one is going to be in January, right here in beautiful Warrensburg, Missouri, at Twister Sports at my gym. You'll be able to do a deep dive into your own business while also not just touring our gyms, but being able to see the behind the scenes of daily operations. So I am so excited for these upcoming CheerBiz Accelerators. However, we only take 20 people. So make sure that you head over to cheerbizaccelerator.com and book a call to see if you qualify to attend. Okay, guys, so today we are going to talk about getting your fire back. Have you ever felt burned out in your gym?
Sadly, yes.
As excited as you once were to go in and to coach or to work on the business, remember that excitement when you first opened your gym? Well, maybe you're a few years in or 10 years or 20 years into owning your gym, and that excitement has died down just a little bit. That happens for every gym owner at one point of owning the gym. Gosh, it happens for coaches, it happens for directors as well. And I think that once we get to that point, sometimes people go down the road of like, is this really worth it to keep doing it? Like, wouldn't it be easier or more exciting at one point to just go get a job and work for somebody else and not have all the pressure?
I would give up everything. Everything.
I will be the first to say that I don't think everyone is made to run a gym. I really don't. I've done business coaching with hundreds of gym owners over the years. And though I think that most people are fully capable of doing it, I have come across 2 or 3 people in the past where I'm like, I just don't know that this is for you, and that's okay. So as we get into this episode, know that if at one point you loved it and you know why you started this, then let's talk about how to get past that burnout. If you're still looking for your why, Dan Cotton just did an episode on the CheerBiz podcast. He unfortunately wore a tank top, so I highly recommend listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to it.
Yes, I am wearing a tank top if you are watching this, and Danielle hates when I wear tank tops.
Ladies, this one's for you. But he just did an episode on how to find your why and remembering your why. And ironically, there was a Facebook post by one of the people I talk to every so often through NextGen named Anna. And she had said, I made this all about the business for so long and I forgot my why. Super ironic because Dan sent me a message that said, did you see the podcast title that I sent you yesterday? And I said, no, I hadn't looked at my email yet. And he's like, go look at it. The day she posted it, talking about I had to find my why to enjoy the business again. Well, the day prior to that, Dan had actually sent the stuff to our marketing team about his podcast about making sure you know your why and how to find it. And so if you're in the boat right now where you're not so much even sure what your why is, first go listen to that episode on the CheerBiz podcast and then come back and hit this episode. Let me tell you about a few years ago, and I've done this a few times. We've been in our gym we're in season 14 right now. And so this has happened a couple times. I think in previous positions for myself, about every 7 years, I get like the 7-year itch of like, okay, I'm kind of ready for something new. Coincidentally, after I had been coaching cheerleading in Missouri anyway, for about 7 years, I had coached, a ton before I was in the Air Force and stuff like that. But before, when I had done my coaching for about 7 years, I was kind of ready for something new. And so we started Next Gen. Well, every, so many years, I get into this feeling of just kind of burnout. And I finally, maybe I'm just at the age, or I've like done this long enough that I kind of started to figure out why I get to that stage. Many years ago, I was so focused on like, okay, I went full time at the gym. My business partner, Angie, went full time. Justin just quit his job and he's now full-time. And our business partner, Dustin, is full-time. We have a full-time manager. We have a full-time client success manager. We have a full-time tumbling director. Like, holy cow, put the weight of the world on your shoulders when you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. When you have all these people that like their livelihood depends on you and making sure that your business is successful. And so if you hear like the amount of focus that is on business in the Next Gen group, well, sometimes that's because we have to remember, yes, this is All-Star, but you are also someone's livelihood. You are their ability to pay their rent and their car bill and stuff like that. And if you can do it in a way that they totally love what they do and they can make that money, that is a win-win for everyone. That weighed so heavily on me for a couple of years that I had started coaching less and less. And as I was taking steps back from coaching, I was filling that new time with working on the business. Developing marketing plans, developing systems, working with different types of software to see where we could find new efficiencies, working with finance, and then doing a lot of self-education as well. I mean, the wonderful part is I had all these other gym owners. I've known Shelly and Dan and Rihanna for 10 years now. And I've had some other friends in the industry for 15 years. And so I was like communicating with them and just learning as much as I possibly could. Well, what happened was I had opened the gym because I loved coaching. Once I started to feel the weight of the world on my shoulders, I started to get a whole lot more stressed out. And I started to listen to others who were saying, you've got to put the business first. And some seasons you're just not going to be able to coach because you're going to have to focus on the business. Maybe I've even said that to people over time, though I don't think that's the case for the majority. Anyway, I had stepped back. I had been coaching 3 teams one season, and the next season we had enough coaches, and I'm like, I'm not going to coach any teams this season. I'm just going to focus on the business. And it was probably November of that season that I felt so burned out, and I felt like I was disconnected from the athletes. I actually didn't even know the names of all the athletes in the program at the time. I knew my elite kids. I didn't know the prep kids. I didn't feel super connected to the coaches. I wasn't really providing super great support because I felt like, okay, the All-Star program is good. I've got to focus on the other things. To be honest, I also was at a stage where because I didn't have my own team, I didn't even know like, why am I going into the gym every night? Right? I had an All-Star director. They were all coaching. And I almost felt a little bit out of place at my own gym. I had like literally worked myself out of a job. And though I don't think it's bad to work yourself out of a job, it's not a good feeling. It was a type of burnout I hadn't expected. It was definitely a business burnout and kind of an emotional burnout. And I feel like what I thought was just me kind of stepping away to focus on the business turned into a slow fade of my passion and my love for cheerleading. I let that season start to pass. I actually took on a half-year prep team because I recognized that I just missed it. I took on a half-year, I actually think I was a half-year novice team, but I focused on the marketing for it. I got 23 kids on the team. And then I spent that like semester focused on how do we get these kids over to All-Star. Really, I was feeling it from about May or June when we do tryouts until December. And then my half-year team started in January. I think, guys, what it came down to was I was burned out because I had lost touch with what I actually loved doing in the gym. Now, fast forward to today. I actually love doing the business side of things too. I don't love doing everything in the business. I don't love doing the day-to-day Facebook posts. I don't love doing bank deposits. I don't love doing initial tumbling training for some of our new staff. Like those are the things that I didn't love. And so it was important for me in that that season of life to find out what are the things I do love doing and what are some of my non-negotiables. And so for at least the next couple of seasons, I did take on some coaching so that I could still have that thing that I love and that why. I'm pretty sure I told everybody that season, like, nope, I don't miss it. It's great. But I also knew that if I said I missed it, you know what I mean? Like I would feel, I wouldn't know how to course correct from there. So it was just kind of a tricky stage of life. And I feel like truly I got burned out because I gave up the one thing I started my gym for, which was coaching and working with the athletes. The following season, I did an overcorrection. I feel like that actually put me in an overcorrection. And then the following, I did another overcorrection. Like, do you ever have the youth kid that you're like, they're kind of in the between quarter panel and half panel, and you're like, hey, just scoot over a little bit, and they like jump over to the line. And you're like, I meant 6 inches, not like 6 feet. Well, that's exactly what I did. I went from coaching too many teams to not coaching any at all to then coaching too many teams all over again.
Overcorrection. Yeah.
It took me a couple of years to like find that perfect balance for myself. Even last year, you know, I was back on like, okay, I'm coaching 3 teams again and I'm excited. And about halfway through the season, I was like, okay, I'm burned out on coaching again. Luckily, I had kind of set up my prep team to be able to train the other coach on it. And eventually she would be able to take over. So it was kind of always a potential plan. But I've talked to you guys so many times before about why it's important to systemize when things are going crazy or even before they get crazy, because by the time you're ready to give away a task or a project, like you're probably too crazy to then go write the system and test the system and stuff like that. So for me, I think it's really important as you come out of this burnout. One, you know, Dan talked about like find your why. Why did you open the gym? Why are you doing this in the first place? And then you've got to do more of that why. And it doesn't mean that you should overcorrect. Don't move 6 feet when you were only supposed to move 6 inches, right? Don't overcorrect by saying, I did this to coach, so I'm going to ignore the business side and now I'm only going to coach. That doesn't work either, because one day, you guys, if you ignore the business side too long, you won't even have a business to coach. You'll have to go coach for somebody else. And their coaching style and their expectation of coaches might be vastly different than the autonomy that you had in your own gym. And so there is a balance to everything in life. Don't coach 5 teams and completely ignore your business. Don't completely ignore your business and not coach at all if that's what you love to do. I don't think that you are a bad gym owner if you don't coach and if you're cool not coaching. Like some of the owners of Next Gen do not coach a lot, and that's okay because they found other things within their business that they love for this season of life. Remember that it's the right amount of things that will prevent the burnout, and it's finding that shift of like doing something you love without creating a complete overcorrection that gets you out of that burnout and keeps you out of that burnout. I was able to slowly transition back and find the sweet spot. And I will tell you, 2 teams for me is the sweet spot. It's about 4 practices a week. I have, in fact, manipulated the schedule a bit for the fall so that it is 3 days a week. Anything over 3 days of obligation for me, and I say obligation in the kindest way, like I still want to do the things for Next Gen. I still want to travel to go to our Cheer Business Accelerators. I still want to go to my daughter's soccer games and her high school football games and stuff like that. I still want to do those things. So for me, an overcorrection is I'm coaching 2 teams, but I'm coaching 4 days a week. Find that balance for yourself. Remember why you started and make sure that you're doing at least a little bit of the thing that you started this for. And if you're not burned out yet, but you're afraid because you hear that it happens with gym owners, find that balance for yourself and avoid overcorrection in the first place. Okay, you guys. So I hope you found some value in this week's episode of Fireside Chat. We've got some really big, exciting things planned. So stay tuned for Fireside Chat because I've got some big news in the upcoming weeks for you here. And I look forward to chatting with you guys more on these weekly episodes. I will see you then.